being here.
So, hands, everybody has them, right? You know? Well, yeah, there are some that don't, but most people have hands. And those hands have an incredible amount of information, although few people realize it. And few people even look at their hands carefully, which is pretty amazing. So hold up your hands. I believe I already know enough about each of you to talk about what your challenges are, what motivates you, what you don't like. And how do I know that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. You know, your hands take up more space in the cerebral cortex of your brain than any other body part except your tongue. This is what enabled us to develop our minds, having an opposing thumb. This is what makes us different than simians. And everything from the simplest pencil to the most complicated computer is a result of this process. So, it makes sense that your mind, your feelings, your actions would then in turn be reflected back in your hands. And palmistry is a very old science and art. It's around 3500 BC, first recorded in Vedic India. Most people think palmistry is, and I want to clear up some misconceptions before we even get started. It's gypsy fortune telling. Like it's a way of getting money from people. Because people are superstitious. One of the things that I want to say is that everything means something. You know, every single thing in your hand, when you read hands, you're not just reading palms. It's not palm reading. It's not just palmistry. Your mind is reflected in the morphology and the topography of your hands. So the shape and proportions, which we're going to be concentrating on mostly today, is the first thing you look at. Then you're looking at the shapes of the way you hold your hands, the lengths of fingers, the shapes of the tips, the nails, the knots on the fingers, the elasticity of the skin, the consistency of the hand, the flexibility, the coloration. Every single thing means something. I mean, once upon a time people used to say, oh, I have this birthmark and somebody told me Palmist told me I was a high priestess or witch burned at the stake in a past life or whatever. And of course I wondered what happened to the regular people, but I would say I can't answer to that because that's not part of the science. You know, people ask, well, how long am I going to live? That's not something that you can answer from palmistry. It's all about quality. The hand is there's a lot of information in the hand, but it's a small amount of space for a whole life. I use astrology when I do private consultations. I use tarot to get at unconscious issues. If you want to ask about someone else, you can't tell that from the hands, nor can you tell it from someone's astrology. Astrology is great for life cycles, timing, understanding patterns and habits, that sort of thing. It's great. But for character, nothing can match hands. Absolutely nothing. It's an instant Myers-Briggs incarnate. There are 4 basic types. In terms of, does anybody know astrology or hand reading here, or you know a bit of astrology? But this wasn't the most propitious timing. I would not have elected it. It's not only Mercury retrograde, but the moon went void of course about an hour ago.
Oh, really?
So if this doesn't work, we're in trouble. But anyway, I chose to do it anyway, knowing that it was going to be, iffy.
Yeah.
Anyway, So there are 4 basic types. In terms of esoteric, we call them fire, earth, air, and water. In terms of psychology, we call them intuitive sensation. I call it practical thinking and feeling. Each of us is dominated by one of those basic types. So I'm going to show you examples and how it works, but I just want to talk about it for a minute first. And we are a smorgasbord. So, you know, pure types are a little rarer, but they're still pretty common. Most of us are a combination of types. But you can often just see the dominant type right away when you look at the person. And knowing that type, you can talk for a long time about what drives that person. And that's what I saw when you held up your hands. What your basic, and one of 4 basic types is. They're very different from each other. You could have 2 conflicting types inside of you, so that there's a battle, let's say, between head and heart, or a battle between freedom, responsibility, or whatever. And that's pretty easy to see too. We also, I assume that, does anybody know what they're going to be doing when they get out of here? I mean, you're going to be interviewing, you're going to be having to sell yourself. And this is one of the reasons that we're looking at ourselves and others, is so that we can understand what's the best approach. You know, if you're a different type than the person you're going to present based on who you are, your type, but you may be presenting to a different type, and it's not going to work with all different types. As a matter of fact, 3/4 of your approach may not work unless you understand how to address or perceive the other types. And we'll get into that. So we have square palms or rectangular palms. So look at your hands. And you're looking at it in terms of, you know, first there's small hands, there's large hands, there's a dominant hand versus a non-dominant hand. I call it conscious versus subconscious. The hand you write with is your conscious hand. People say I'm ambidextrous, but the hand you write with is your conscious hand. Hands are very different from each other. If you look, usually there's often a lot more going on in the unconscious hand because you've done a lot of work on yourself. So you can see in the conscious hand that maybe it's a little clearer, or you know, hopefully it's, you know, you've done the work. Now there are 3 modalities. This is where, you know, astrology and palmistry connect. Most palmists believe there are 7 basic types. That's not the case. There are 12 basic types, just like there are in astrology. And the way you get 12 types is you combine 3 modalities with 4 basic archetypes. And modalities are cardinal, fixed, and mutable in astrology. I call them initiators, people who are go-getters, who don't care what anybody thinks, who go out there and do what they're going to do anyhow. And then there's the fixed type, who they tend to procrastinate. They're very practical, but a lot of times it takes either a lot of structure or something outside of themselves to motivate them. And then there are the adapters, the people that are very changeable. They're mutable in astrology. So if you take those 3 combinations of, you know, cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and apply them to each of the 4 elements, you end up with 12 basic types. So what we want to look like, or at in ourselves tonight, is what's our basic archetype in terms of whether we're dominant in earth, air, you know, water, or fire. What's our basic archetype? Because that's going to give us a lot of information about ourselves. Then we want to know, are our hands very flexible, or are they very stiff, or you know, are they very elastic? And you can tell a lot just from a handshake. You know, first thing I do when someone comes to see me is shake their hand. You know, because it lets me know where they're at. So, you know, are they enthusiastic? Are they happy to be there? Are they afraid? Or, you know, are they, you know, it it just, you know, gives you, and plus you want to, you know, I get all the time from people, can I send you pictures and blah, 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 and, you know, that's not how I work. I like to look at someone's eyes, I like to feel their energy, you know, I like to see the color, feel what's going on, and then have a dialogue. Because the dialogue is also a huge part of learning to read somebody. But you can read people surreptitiously, and that's the part that I'm hoping to be able to pass on here. I'm not going to teach palmistry in 3 hours. Hopefully I'll spike your interest and you'll do a little homework on your own. I do have a blog. If you start at the beginning, you can learn a lot about palmistry. And so maybe I'll start the, so who has square palms? I don't know. A little more tiny. You can show it to a neighbor and ask them if they think it's square. You're outlining the palm. You're looking at it in an outline. I have a square palm. My palm is square. I'm pretty clear. So you have a square palm. That means that you're air or earth. You're either practical or you're intuitive. You may be. I mean, or thinking, or you may be both. Are your fingers long or are they short compared to your hand? We'll get into it. I'm alerting you to the fact that your fingers are either long or short. Yeah, I think this fingers are pretty long. Long-fingered people are much better organizers than short-fingered people. Small-handed people or short-fingered people, they tend to be more conceptual. They tend to be better at seeing the large picture, than long-fingered people who are much better at detail, much better at organization. There are things sometimes that mitigate things, but when you look close up. But on the whole, like I say, everything means something. So you may have fingerprints that change the picture a little bit, or the way your lines, lines start somewhere, they end somewhere, and they're a quality in between. The way they operate in your hands, we're not going to get a lot into that, except in the examples of people that chose to be ridiculous. Although we will throw up questions as the evening goes on. Go ahead.
How can I know the length of my fingers if they were short versus long?
Well, you're comparing it to your palm. No, you're looking from the palm side. Yes. And actually the tools of the trade, you don't need it after a while because you learn to judge, and judging is everything. It's a little sliding roll that you get at a hardware store. So let's say that, the individual phalanges of fingers are important, and which phalange is longest, which is shortest. That actually means something, we're not going to worry about that tonight, but, we'll show. So you set your guide, and then you look at the other ones. Well, then you know which one's longest by using this. You can do that with the lengths of the fingers too. If you take the middle finger, is always longest. If it's not, there's a little trouble there with structure and discipline. But then you put it next to the palm, and you know whether or not. But a lot of times you can tell just by looking. I mean, there were some of the people in the group where it's obviously long fingers or obviously short fingers, and we'll show them as we go on. The other tool is a magnifying glass. So this way you get the look close up, and that gives you a much better perspective of what's going on in the hand. So we have two tools. You don't need anything else. You don't need a correct time of birth. You don't need a computer. All you need is a little sliding rule and a magnifying glass. Okay, so let's plug in. Okay, we're on. All right, so intuitive type, long palm, short fingers. You see? I mean, I picked pretty pure types so that it's obvious. But we get the long palm, short fingers. Material type, I call it material, it's practical. You can give it different names. Square palm, short fingers. Thinking type, that's my hand. Square palm, long fingers. Feeling type, long palm, long fingers. Those fingers don't necessarily look long, but that palm is so long that it makes them look shorter. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we have some good examples in our groups that we'll be able to talk
middle
about.
finger is shorter.
No, it's not.
So okay. Intuitive type. So who's an intuitive type here?
Hell
Yes.
Kyle. I see you, Kyle.
Yeah.
No way.
Long palm, short fingers. Yes, the ones I've seen so far look like they are. So you know yourself. So here we go. The intuitive type has rectangular palms and short fingers. These highly spirited and enthusiastic individuals dislike details, need to grasp the whole picture, pride themselves on their honesty. You can read it for yourself, require a lot of freedom to express themselves naturally. They're extroverted, very busy, objective, independent thinkers who learn to set goals in order to accomplish their objectives. They get easily bored when life gets mundane and routine. Does any of you intuitive people disagree with that?
That sounds like you.
Yeah, you need to be.
Do not like routine at all.
People, they hate routine.
Can't get in the car and go anywhere.
So they need to stay inspired and passionate. They need to cultivate clear vision because they, once they get too bored, they're kind of on the next thing. Their favorite thing is beginning things, starting things. Pioneering, getting, the beginnings of things are the most exciting part.
Can we actually see who that was again?
Yeah.
That is so interesting. We'll see you. Compared to your
I think they're fairly long.
they're long.
Well, actually, she does have a long palm. So, you might be a combination. Yeah. Intuitive is strong in you. It may not be the dominant thing, but it is strong. So you still have some of those qualities. Okay, let's look at the next slide.
Hey guys, try not to talk too much amongst yourselves.
That's a print of an intuitive type. This guy, if you know astrology, was triple Aries. He had sun, moon, and ascendant in Aries. And you can see the long palm and the short fingers. This space in here between the headline, now there are three lines, that you have to have, almost everybody has to have. That's a lifeline, a headline, that's the middle line, and the top line is the heart line. But when you see a space in between here, and there are people in this room I know that have that, they tend to be rebellious freedom lovers. They tend to not really want to hear what other people have to say. They want to do it their way. So, and it goes with the intuitive type pretty well, although any type can have it. Practical types. Who's a practical type? Your finger's a little long, actually. Yeah, you're sort of combination earth and air, practical and thinking. That's practical. Yeah. So these are the most responsible, reliable, dependable, pragmatic, objective of all the types. And one of the things that they need to do is learn to trust their intuition because they tend to be a little analytical and pragmatic about everything. If you have somebody interviewing you with hands like this, you're you need to have your pencil sharp. You need to know your stuff, because they want to know the nuts and bolts. They don't want to hear your inspirations and your passions and your stories. They want to know that you can do the job. Can everybody read that, or is that hard to see? I put it in there because it's almost easier for you to read it than for me to say it. World of work often dominates their life. They get addicted to routine and order. This is the hardest of people to change. Hands change as people start thinking and circumstances change. But I'd say this type probably changes the least because they tend to be fixed. They tend to fight change. They tend to procrastinate with beginnings and endings. They're very good once they're going. There's no stopping them. But then they have to learn to see the handwriting on the wall and cut their losses. So this becomes a challenge for this particular type. Here's an example. And this person has a separation here. I think that's actually quite a good thing for a practical type to have, because it gives them an initiative, it gives them motivation, it makes them more spontaneous.
Separation between the
Head and lifeline.
head and line.
Yes. I'm just showing simple examples of pure types. Thinking type, of course, that's my hand, and they tend to be the most communicative and also the most versatile of all the types. The problem is they get distracted and end up being a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. So,
Who has this hand?
how many? Yes. I think you're.
It's really interesting when you put your hand up, you can actually see.
That's true. It is, and yes. They often have their fingers spread.
Yeah.
They like their space. They like their independence. They don't like being told what they're very social, very interesting people. Although, depending on how flexible their hands are, they can be pretty superficial too sometimes. Does anybody have anybody in here have very flexible thumbs? Thumbs that bend way back? I don't mean back at the back joint, but at the first joint. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty flexible, yes. So if you have a flexible, hold up your hand and show people how to. So you can bend your thumb back. Both my hands used to be like that. My left hand still, I can bend back the right one because of all the work I've had to do on myself. Won't bend back anymore. And that's something that's changed in my own hands. Would you know what your biggest challenge is? Yes.
That's the thing, that sometimes there's so much stuff going on in terms of focusing or deciding what to do.
Yeah, that's part of it. Learning to say no.
Yeah. Super hard.
Easy, yeah. No, it's really hard. When you have very flexible thumbs, yours is stiff. When you want to feel them, actually you're reading someone's hands, you want to feel their hands. You want to try bending back. If the tips of the fingers bend back, that person is open-minded. They tend to be, more receptive to, your good sense of your logic or whatever. But those very flexible thumbs, they get distracted, they have too many things going on. The dirty words are like focus, discipline, structure. Those are the hardest things to do sometimes, and you have to force yourself. You just have to bite the bullet, because there's so many interests, so many desires. Things get hard. You want to go to the desert island. At least in your mind, you're off on your way. So anyway, let's go on. Oh, and that's just a print of my hand. Feeling type. Long palm, long fingers. So who are the feeling types? There are quite a few feeling types here.
Wow.
No.
An opposite of feeling types. they're often held close together. They're the most cautious of all the types. You know, the thing about feeling type is that you want to build trust. If you're selling a feeling type, it's not about, you know, being practical or inspiring them or giving them all the good information. It's really about them having a sense that they can rely on you, depend on you, know that you're there. You know, this is the most important thing with feeling type is learning to trust. Also make some of the best friends, because once your trust is earned, they're real keepers. So, I mean, any feeling type in here would probably agree with that, yes? No. I don't hear any yeses. Version, you have to look closer. So, you know, like a feeling type and a intuitive type, that's like fire and water. You know, that's a very steamy combination. You know, the intuitive type, you know, they've got one foot out the door, and the feeling type is like they want them both feet in the door. So it's hard to trust the intuitive and the thinking types of feeling types. They just may not be there when they need them. Anyway. That's another picture of a feeling type. Another way you can see feeling in the hands is when there's a lot going on. Like oftentimes the earthy type, the practical type won't have a lot going on in the hands. But you can have another type that has a lot going on. Does anybody have lines like this in their hands? A lot of lines? You guys like lines like that in your hand?
I mean, not that deep, but it's just all the lines.
Is it common to find more lines on one hand than the other?
Yes, the unconscious hand often has more lines than the other.
The unconscious.
Yes.
So,
And that means you've done a lot of work in clearing a lot of the you know, the psychic garbage, or however you want to call it, that you know you've had in your life. But anyhow, when I see a hand like this, I have to be really careful what I sell. First thing I say is don't drink coffee, okay? Because if the person wakes up with enough nervous energy to just, you know, like you have already funny or something. And you just don't want, they need things to calm them, yoga, swimming, whatever, exercise. But these are people who remember the bad things even when you didn't say anything. So you have to be careful when you see somebody with a lot of lines, because they tend to be superstitious. And I've had people come to me and say, oh yeah, Palmist looked at my hand at a party 7 years ago and said 7 years bad luck, and I've had 7 years of bad luck. And it's like every time something happened, they thought about the Palmist. Oh yeah. That's it. It's true. You know, it's just horrible. You know, some people, and people in helping professions already, other people give them too much power and they give themselves too much power. So it's way important that you know yourself, actually. So that adds water. No matter what you type you have, if you see, that adds feeling. You see all those lines. Now we'll talk about the three modalities. I don't know if anybody knows this person, Flash Rosenberg. She's quite a character. She was the artist in residence at the New York Public Library. I think she's been for some years, a performer. But these are the people that, you know, low set thumb, open held fingers, very elastic skin and very resilient hands. Separated usually life and headline. You know, they're doers. They need to be busy all the time. They need to be active all the time. Always, you know, kind of always on. This is my dentist, Dr. Bricks. He's a great guy. Anyway, square palm, you know, basically square palm shows huge balls of the thumb. Real giver, lover of music. He sings while he works on my teeth, you know, and or hums a lot and things like that. but very generous spirit and extremely practical, very resourceful, a real craftsman, you know, really knows his stuff. So you can add these modalities to any type and it'll add those qualities to that type. There's me. A warm handshake that conveys honesty and sincerity, which may not necessarily be the whole truth. Because you know the adapters, I call it an adapter here, is adaptable. You know, you kind of make things work based on the, you know, it's like Zelig or something. You know, the situation that you're in, you figure out how to, you know, either use tact and diplomacy or, you know, of course, some people have other things that's we'll talk about that too, turn them into peacemakers and what have you. But communication is their thing. They kind of tie the other types together. They help, because the initiators and the builders aren't necessarily the best communicators.
How do you recognize? How do you recognize which ones?
How do you know?
Yeah, how do you recognize?
If there's a lot of flexibility in your hands, like if you feel that the tips bend back, fingers bend back, the thumbs bend back, if the skin feels very, like you press it and it just bounces right back, and that kind of thing. Sometimes soft hands and things too will show this type, but like the fixed type has stiff, really stiff hands. I mean, Dr. Bricks, you can't bend his thumb with a nutcracker, you know. But that, you know, it doesn't stop him from being a wonderful person. It just means it's, you know, he's fixed in his ways of doing things, and you know how he, you know, changes. He does the same way all the time. It's his style. So if you're very stiff hands, you're a fixed type. It's going to take a lot to get you to change. You know, so that's your job, is to change yourself and to get others to you know, sometimes it's just plain old making good sense. So this is the 12 types. I've given them names, but you can see, maybe I'll just use a dot. Intuitive types, you have the cardinal, fixed, and mutable. This is in terms of astrology, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So your sun sign doesn't mean it's your personality. I think that a lot of people realize that or know that. You know, they read your sun sign column, and it's, you know, that is a very deeply ingrained energy, you know, on a soul level. But it isn't a character. It's not how you behave, your sun sign. Sometimes it does. Sometimes they match. I find it in a lot of celebrities that the sun sign matches the hand type. You know, it just gives extra oomph to the, you know, the personality. Lots of famous people have that. But you get here like Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. This isn't showing up very well, but Libra, Aquarius, Gemini, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. So this hand actually matches that sun sign, and that sun sign that matches that hand is actually what your personality is like. But once you determine that, you're on your way. You can talk for an hour with that person, you know, about how they respond, how they are in relationships. What can you tell from a hand? All the things you don't learn in school, for sure. You know, like what your character is, what are your values? How many people know what they really value? The way you think, how you feel, your use of willpower. Do you understand your willpower and how you use it? Your health propensities. I don't diagnose health, but you can tell a whole lot about health from the hands. And different types have different health potentials. You can tell about relationships, you know, partnerships, marriage, things like that from the hands. Creativity. Tell a lot about a person's philosophy from their hands. Their purpose. This goes into the career area. You can tell about a person's hopes and dreams and wishes from their hands, their fears, and their spirituality. I mean, most people don't even know what spirituality is. They connect it to religion or, but many people, they'll say, am I a spiritual person? And I'll say, well, what does spirituality mean to you? And then that brings on a whole other discussion. But these are things from your hands that you actually, I think that hands should be taught in grade school. It's just so, it's like right there, right at the end of your arms, all this information. Anyway, so it breaks down to 12 types. So we talk about finger lengths. There is a normal length of fingers. Now, whatever you've got is what you're supposed to have, evidently. But the middle finger is always longest. The normal length of the index and the ring finger is to the middle of the first phalange of the middle finger. If it's longer, it's considered long. If it's shorter, it's considered short. If the pinky is always the shortest finger, and Mercury is an archetype that people know mythology, was the shortest god, and it is normally up to the length of where the first phalange of the ring finger ends. So if it's shorter, it's considered short. If it's longer, it's considered long. Lots of things happen with pinkies. So,
These fingers are short.
well, your pinky needs to be, generally it's short. I mean, I've seen people with huge pinkies. They're generally like very powerful people. A lot of times, bankers and people that are powerful in the world have really big, strong pinkies. Does anybody have a curved pinky? A pinky that curves inward? In towards the ring finger. It curves in. Yes. Okay, well, we'll talk about that for a second. These are people that avoid confrontation. Are peacemakers. These are people who learned in childhood that nice works. Maybe there was a dysfunctional parent and they learned to behave in a way that's, whether they actually behaved, they certainly made their parent think that they were behaving. So, my advice is to anybody with curved pinky is be yourself, not who you think other people want and need you to be. The older you get, the more you need satisfying instead of safe. Safe doesn't work at a certain point, and you need to shine light on things to fix them. So, but people with curved pinkies have a very difficult time doing that. So, it's important to look back and realize why it is that behavior started, and it goes back usually pretty far. In combination with a short index finger and a tied together head and lifeline. It's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. We'll talk about it more as we go. But anyway, and you'll hear a lot of things about if a person has a longer ring finger than a index finger, then they're homosexual, and all those kinds of things. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's plenty of gay people with long index fingers, and there's plenty of great people with short. So you just all these studies, they go to a psychic fair in San Francisco and they read 75 people and they come up with these theories.
San Francisco.
So whatever. It just, I read all this stuff and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe this. It's just never ever gonna be valid. Anyway, so, and those individual phalanges, they gave names to the fingers in terms of Roman mythology and all that. This is Jupiter, Zeus, Saturn, Apollo, the Sun, and Mercury. So if one of these fingers is dominant, so let's say your index finger is your dominant finger. Let's say it's the longest finger in your hand. I mean, assuming not Saturn's always the longest, the middle's always the longest. But let's say Jupiter's a very long finger. Who has a long index finger? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of long index fingers. That's good. These are people who are ambitious. They like other people like themselves. They need to be professional. They need to have a career. They need to be in the world. People with long index fingers, are natural leaders a lot of times. There may be other things in the hand that mitigate that, but on the whole, you've got yourself potential of being a natural leader with a long index finger. The middle finger is way dominant, like you can tell just by looking at it. It's just a strong finger compared to the other fingers. These are loners. These are people that need a lot of time for themselves. Does anybody here have a middle finger that leans towards the ring finger? Yes. Okay, well, you need a lot of personal space. If you're not given your space, you're going to get cranky and irritable. Agreed? You get cranky when you feel confined and controlled and restricted. It's just the way it is, so you sort things out, tell people not to take it personally, and I'm going to go close the door for a while or whatever. I'm going to take a walk, go see some friends. But if that's strong, then you may be a perfectionist. That can be a problem. You get to the goal and it's like, oh, it could have been better, it could have been different, wasn't good enough. That's like putting goals ahead of process, and that's the problem all in and of itself. But the middle finger people, those are the scientists and the technical people and the engineers and that sort of thing. When the ring finger is long, and there's a lot of long ring fingers in here, I've noticed.
Can more
Yes?
than one finger be long?
Huh?
Can more than one finger be long?
Then one finger?
More than like 2 fingers?
Oh yeah, sure. You can have your fingers can be can have different shaped tips. They can have different prints on them. A lot of different things can happen with fingers, but when the ring finger is long, those are your designers. Those are your people with the natural feng shui, with taste and style and things like that. Of course, you can have a large ball of the thumb and also have love of nature, children, and beauty and art and music and everything else. But the people who have the long ring fingers, those are the actual manifestors of putting objectivity and creativity together. People with long pinkies, those are your writers, your doctors, of course, everything are combinations of things, but your orators and things like that. Strong pinky is a real communicator. You have to look at how they're set, too. Sometimes it's very low set, and that's why it looks really short. That's usually, other kinds of problems in childhood. When you have a short, low set. When the pinky is short because it's low set, a lot of times there's a child abuse that may go with that, or a sexual issue, that had to do with, parenting and values, parents' values and things like that.
In that picture,
Shorter than the crease of my
If we have time at the end, we can look at anybody's hands. This is just, kind of to show you an idea about career, because there's a lot to know from your fingers. If you're a dominant finger, and I know there's someone in the group that had a gigantic middle phalange here on this finger. So, those might be, there's enough here to fill a finger, but there are plenty of other careers that you can do if you're dominant in one of these fingers. And I also saw some people with a tiny phalange at the bottom of their little finger. Anybody have that? Let's say your pinky. The smallest phalange on the pinky is the bottom phalange. Anybody have that? Like the shortest phalange on the pinky is the bottom phalange.
So wait, what are we looking for here?
We're looking at the different phalanges, the lengths of the phalanges in the individual fingers. So I'm saying right now, if your pinky finger has a short phalange on the bottom, if the bottom phalange is the shortest one. Huh? Well, you look at both hands. You can look at either. The one you're dominant is the one we're concentrating on. The hand you're right with this hand we're concentrating on. We'll want to know whether that's an actual joint or whether that's a crease because of how long it is and the way but it is a long phalange there. Yeah. It adds a lot of practicality. So if that bottom phalange is the shortest on your pinky, we're just looking at the pinky now. Money's not going to be what drives you. You know, you better do something you enjoy. You know, probably family is your big motivation. Does anybody have that short phalange in the bottom? Yeah. So it's like you're going to go out in the world and, you know, be practical and all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing it for the money, you may have a problem with the satisfaction and fulfillment part of it. You know, think about what it is you really enjoy if you got that bottom phalange that's short, because it's not going to be the money unless you're doing it for family. Then you'll shovel shit against the wind or whatever. You know, that's just the way it is. If the middle phalange is short, now, you know, people have, I saw in some of the examples anyway, knots developed. Like there's a middle knot on the middle fingers, you know, and then there's an upper knot on the first phalange. Some people have both knots developed, but if you've got that middle knot developed, you like order. You like things in their place. However, meaning that if some people have smooth fingers, you can run your, and you can barely feel the knots. Some people, it's like there's a big bump there, like almost like they have arthritis. Yeah, when there's a big bump, that's the need for order, particularly in the area that finger represents. But some people have it on all the fingers. So if you like things in place, I see people with huge knots. You go into their house and you say, oh, what a nice so-and-so, and then you turn your back for a minute and they're like turning it back to the exact spot. So anyway, if the middle phalange is the smallest, even though you like all that order, it's hard keeping. Anybody with the smallest phalange in the middle of their pinky finger has a hard time keeping the order. It's hard keeping things in their place. Make a bunch of money and you hire somebody. It goes there and you keep it there. Anyway, I mean, you can talk about a million things, but we're going to move on. Oh, talking about how hands change. Of course, they change more in children than they do in adults, although my hand has changed hugely as an adult since I learned to read hands. Because, you put your consciousness someplace, and as you're thinking in circumstances change, so do your hands. They don't change like quickly, but they do change over time. So I have a stiff thumb that used to be extremely flexible. I have a index finger that's longer that used to be shorter. So, but this is a child. This child at age 2 lost his parents. And if you look, you see the curved, kind of a weak thumb, curved pinky, a lot of stuff going on in the hands here, curved, low set little finger. That kid was taken in by loving parents, adopted by relatives who gave a lot of nurturing and love. And this same kid at age 7 has a really strong, healthy hand. Strong thumb, straight index finger, well set, strong pinky. Same kid. So the nurture versus nature is huge. A kid changed, those people changed that kid's life through nurture. He could have been neurotic and, a total mess growing up with the wrong nurture. Just wanted to show one example. Oop. All right, we're going with the group. So, let me show you the actual. So what do you think? What's that?
I was saying, are her...
Oh, when the two middle fingers are held closely, there's a concern about the future. There's there's a looking towards the future. That's an important thing. to that person.
Especially that day, it's really weird.
That's very interesting. Because sometimes hands change, you know, even in the context of a single reading, somebody will come and I'll say, hold up your hands, because I always do it like this so that they don't see how I hold up my hands because people imitate you. But, you know, so let's say someone holds up their hands like this, they're a little timid. And so I realized that, you know, the first thing I need to do is start talking about their good qualities. And so I'll say, oh, you're a very loving person. And then, you know, like, and I'm seeing, like, while we're talking, they're going like this. And pretty soon there's like, they don't have anything to hide anymore, you know, just in the context of a few minutes of talking. But, you know, you can see when someone's insecure, or, you know, sometimes people hold their thumb in, you know. Hands reveal a whole lot about where that person's at that moment. Anyway, so this is strong, healthy, well balanced. What type do we have?
Bill.
You think this is feeling type?
I don't know much.
That's
I mean, certainly the palm is really long. Yes? Let's look. Yeah, I think it's kind of a cross between strongest and feeling. Yeah. Strongest and feeling. So what does that mean? So from what we've learned so far.
She's the most cautious. I don't know what trust you.
If the thumb is held, it adds even more caution. If the fingers are all held together, that adds even more caution. If this is more tied together, that adds even more caution. On the whole, this is a really healthy hand. The way that the headline curves down shows a lot of imagination, creativity, which feeling types often have. It does look like it branches here. And when you get a branch, oftentimes there's a much harder time making up the mind, because here's all this creativity, but then practicality is pulling. It's like, oh God, I better be responsible, I better be practical, you know, I better be dependable and reliable, but yet I just really want to just be creative and trust my intuition. The heart line, very, very nice heart line. It's graceful, it's long, it goes up towards the index finger. It's, you know, is a real romantic.
You're not trying to woo her.
No, she's so, whoa, if you're trying to woo her, flower, bring the flower, have a candlelight meal, an old movie to cry at, talk about feelings. This is the way to go. You know, and it's true. It's not hop in the sack. You need all the you know, you need all the accoutrements. Huh? It has to be earned. You know, the best thing that you can do in terms of relationship is be old-fashioned. Make them work. Make them earn every drop. Don't give away anything. You know, because what's earned is appreciated. And you know, when a person has the connection, you know, some people have more or less connection. Who's head and lifelines are connected? A lot of people. Every one of you that's connected, don't ever let anybody take you for granted. You need to be appreciated. I mean, you're willing to work, but you've got to be acknowledged and recognized for that hard work you do. It's a very bad thing to be taken for granted. You know, so don't do it. More connected, the more you care about what other people think. The more you tend to want approval. Sometimes approval's a motivation. And when your index finger's long, you like the partner. You want to have somebody in your life. You enjoy partnering. It's good to set goals and plan and dream work with somebody else. It's very important. And if you agree or disagree, you're welcome to put in your 2 cents. You know, this is a hand of somebody who has the potential to be successful with whatever they choose, because of the basically strong index finger And you know, a straight pinky is, you know, what you see is what you get. You're not trying to pretend that you're something you're not. It's a good combo. All right. Is the embarrassment there in the third row? Or, yeah. These are very nice hands. When we look more close, and we'll see how working hands they are too. Be really hands-on. People who have this kind of separation here, they need to be active. They need to be doing. They need to be busy. They need to be on the go. And sitting around doesn't work. Yes. Another strong, healthy hand. You know, a good, strong thumb. You know, full ball of the thumb. It's hard to see what's going on in here. I tried to look closer up, and I don't know how focused the image was. But when you see lines in the ball of the thumb, some people have a lot of lines. There are lines here. When there are no lines, it's really hard to get close to these people. It's hard to earn their trust. When there are a lot of lines, well, those people are real true blue friends and keepers. You know, some people have
Horizontal or
this.
vertical?
Vertical, the ones that go down.
Yes.
Yeah. The horizontal lines, well, when they cross the lifeline, they call them worry lines. They're not necessarily worries, but the things that you know, interfere with the oftentimes in the early childhood that are going on with other people. But when you have, and a lot of times you see lines more at the bottom, and these people that grow and learn to trust as they get older. They learn that some of the real riches in their life are in friendship and intimacy and allowing themselves to be vulnerable. There's some of that, more of that in you. But you like your independence at the moment. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know if you're in a relationship, but you certainly, with a long index finger, like to be in a relationship, although you have to stay a million miles away from jealous, controlling, possessive types. Like, that's an absolute no-no. The beginning and the end. The good news is you know how to say there's the door, but you don't want to get involved in the first place. The heart line's a little different than Esmina's. It's comes up between the index and middle finger, as opposed to sort of moving towards the index finger. So you're more practical about your feelings. You tend to kind of like, you know, be pragmatic about feelings sometimes. They're still healthy. You know, there are some lines that look like they start to curve down towards the headline. When you have that, and so there are people in here that do, that's when you get analytical. That's when you start like compartmentalizing, rationalizing, analyzing, making decisions about feelings and things like that. All of you who do that have got lines that come down from the heart line towards the headline. You have any questions?
Many.
I should have asked Esmina the same thing.
Later.
I'm not going to embarrass anybody.
Are you going to talk about, I've been told that there was like a fate line, like is that line down the middle of the column?
Yes.
Sort of?
The three lines you absolutely need are the life, head, and heart line. But there is a fate line. It starts at the very bottom, generally, of the hand and goes up towards the middle finger. Although it can start somewhere else and it can end up somewhere else. But the most common formation of it is starting at the bottom. So this is a fate line here. And it does go up, and it shows, you know, a hard-working, steady, you know, nose to the grindstone, do what I have to do. Even though you want to be free and do what you want to do, you still are doing the shoulds and supposed tos. This could, you know, potentially be a health issue. It's, you know, nothing serious. You're a healthy type by nature, but you'd have to watch your diet. Be conscientious about whether there are food sensitivities or, you know, potential allergies or things like that. I don't know if there is anything. There may not be.
You want me to respond?
Yes.
Oh, not allergies, but I think I know what you're,
Yes.
going for.
And sometimes there are structural things that happen along the heel of the hips. People say, oh, it's travel and all that, but a lot of times there could be knees, depending on where it is, or lower back, or, you know, other issues. I do not diagnose, so it's not something that, you know, I ever talk about. You hear it? Need it? Yes, good. Very back, the last row. That's interesting because you're potentially a person who really put herself in the front row. Put herself out there. Look at the way the fingers lean towards the index finger. I mean, that's really a giver, a person who wants to put herself out there, who likes being in the world, who wants to be a part of things, who enjoys teamwork, who likes to, you know, be useful and what have you. Would you say, what kind of hand would you say that is? It's a rectangular palm. I guess the fingers are a bit shorter than the palm, yes?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to see from here, my perspective's off, but, so you're an intuitive type, and it adds that the headline and the lifeline are separated. So, you know, strong index finger. Now here's where also your freedom versus responsibility issue comes in, because with this combination, intuitive with the separated head and lifeline, and the strong middle finger that bends a little bit towards the ring finger, where they appear to kind of come together, makes you a very good craftsman. But it's so hard to just, you know, play, because there's always a should or supposed to. It's like, oh, I should be doing this, I'm supposed to be do that. You know, your friends call, hey, let's go out, you know, drinking or whatever, and I go, oh no, I should be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing that. So it's kind of like you need to lighten up, you know, be a kid too, and you know, have fun and find a balance between, you know, doing the should supposed to and having an adventurous, exciting, interesting life, because that's important. You know, let yourself be inspired, let yourself be passionate. Very good thing. I think the heart line looks like it's a little short to me. It's not real easy to see. But it appears to be that you're a little reticent to verbalize your feelings. Would you say that's true or no?
I don't know what that means.
That means that you, instead, when it comes to verbalizing feelings, you're better at showing and doing and giving than actually talking about feelings. Yeah. So sometimes when you see that, you want to talk about parenting and look back to see why is it that person is holding back. Why are they holding back? They have so much, you know, sort of potential to really be out there, and why is it that they're resistant to maybe intimacy, or trusting people, or letting people in? You know, what's that about? You have any questions, Eva?
What about the islands? Like I see up there under her index finger. There's like where the line comes apart and comes back together.
When you're...
Right up. Yeah, if you go, no, sorry, under her index finger.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like where the line makes like a circle, like a.
I actually can't see it
Oh,
from
at
here.
her,
At joint.
Oh, you're saying here?
Yeah.
I don't actually read those. I mean, there's just so many things. It's kind of like astrology. You know, somebody will show me their chart, and it's got like every asteroid and outer planet, and you know, a man-made sign and everything else. I say, well, where's the sun?
Yeah.
You know, it's you just have to get a gestalt. You know, before you start getting into like, you know, immense detail with everything. There is another way of telling whether a finger is dominant or not, and that is that there's a little triangle in the skin ridge patterns. If you look real closely under your magnifying glass at your skin ridge patterns, you really do need a magnifying glass. They come together in a way that there are little triangles from here and there. If you have like whorl fingerprints, then there's two triangles in there. You know, a loop would have one triangle, but in the actual dermatoglyphic of the palm, there are triangles also. And if there's one that's high and centered under that particular finger, it adds strength to the finger. Just something for you to look at on your own, in your own time or whatever. It's interesting how one side turned out light and the other dark. So, what do we have? Feeling. Feeling. Yes?
Yeah.
Jenny, where are you? Oh. Do you agree with that feeling?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. Feeling's a little cautious. Fingers are held fairly close together. Let's look at the other shot. Nice hand. Strong, healthy. You know, good attention to detail, good organizational abilities. Strong knots, you know, a bit of a need for order there. The headline is long, and it sort of goes horizontal here. It shows a strong practical bent. Like it's hard not to be practical. It's hard not to be responsible and reliable and dependable and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you see and it's a strong index finger. So you've worked since you were little. Since you were a little girl, you've done your best at everything. You were a good student. You tried your best at everything. But here around, now it's hard to judge timing in a hand, but I'd say around age. You know, in astrology, there's a Saturn return. It's like between age 28 and 30. And sometimes if you see a big thing in the hand, because where it crosses the headline, oftentimes it's around age 35. So I'm looking here and I'm saying, well, sometime between age of 28 and 30, there's going to be a transition in terms of career. And it's hard to tell what that is. It might be you decide to have a family or something. But you may change direction then, or you may be where it's overlapping, doing two different things at once.
What if one of those, like, I remember this also. When I was a kid, I was like playing in the yard, and I actually got like a cut, and I think one of them scarred. So I think one of them may not, like, I can't remember if it's the one above or below the headline. One of them may not be like naturally occurring on my hand.
Well, for whatever reason, you know, people say, I have this scar. It's up to you to interpret what that means.
Okay,
It does mean something. Everything means something. However you get it, it doesn't matter how you got it. It's there, and it does mean something. So it's you know, you have to kind of figure that out. Usually through dialogue and things. You know, we also look at astrology and you know what have you. It sort of comes to light. Anyway, good strong lifeline. Of course, we know I've seen short lifelines on ancient people and you know long ones on people who've died. So you never know, but the quality is really good and strong. Usually when it comes around the ball of the thumb, a person has a really strong need for a home base, for the feeling of you know stability, of having a foundation. You know, a place to always go back to no matter where they go or what they do. People whose lifelines swing out, mine branches, so I have a home in the country and one in the city, and you know, the country's getting stronger and stronger as time goes on.
Does that mean you have like multiple homes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have my home here, but I, you know, have, it can be travel. I mean, it could be a love of travel when you see that line branch out at the bottom of the lifeline. You know, the person really has a wanderlust, needs to go. You have any questions?
What, like, can you talk about the fate line? Like, what is it?
It's a strong fate line, so it's not like you're not always going to be working. Like you're a thriver. You're a person who needs to make her way, who needs to be independent, who needs to do, be a professional, have a career. So that's definitely going to happen. But you may, at the point where they overlap, transition from one career to another. Now, if we look at the where it's heading, in the beginning, it looks like it's heading up towards the index finger. So perhaps you started out thinking that you were going to serve other people, that you were going to be, who knows what, a teacher, a social worker, a doctor, or who knows what. But then as it starts to head towards the middle finger, it takes on a more practical quality and also a more technical quality. So it's hard to tell. I always tell people, you already know everything. I'm just here to affirm. Are they little hands?
Yeah.
Big thinker. Big picture person. Big thinker. I always talk about the little-handed and the big-handed person. They're walking down the street together, and they come to there's a new building or whatever, and the big-handed person is like, oh, look at this plaque, and they're reading the plaque, and the little-handed person's like, wow, look at this building. It's there's a difference in orientation. You also look at rings when people wear rings. Some people wear a lot of rings or whatever. That means there's a lot of issues. The normal place for a ring is on the ring finger, and the normal metal is gold, and the normal gem is diamond, because those are both sun. Apollo, the sun, gold is the sun, and diamond is the sun. So they go naturally marriage. But when you see a ring on the middle finger, then there's a good possibility that person is having a need to rethink the way they deal with their finances, restructure their money. They're needing to think, how am I going to have enough, for now and down the road, and that sort of thing.
Definite issue during grad school.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But I'll say, do you wear this ring all the time or whatever? And sometimes the person does or doesn't. But when they do, it often has to do with, although they don't know it, their need to be focusing on their finances or whatever. Nice hands, strong, straight fingers,
Very straight.
healthy. We'll go to the other picture because you can see it better. There is a connection there. So, there's a possibility, because it's pretty well connected, that the parents were a little protective or a little controlling.
100%.
So it created a need in you to be liked, to be appreciated. And you're one of those people that never ever should allow yourself to be taken for granted. Never. You work hard. You've got a lot of good stuff there, and I think it's pretty thinking type. Long fingers and square palm, as I see it from here anyway.
I have a question. So she should never, or somebody with that connection should never let themselves be taken for granted, or they should get over it, thinking that people take them for granted?
Both, because they tend to
Yeah.
take things personally, even when they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an issue,
Yeah.
because it's like if the person, there's a procrastination sometimes that goes with that. Like you have to make a sale or whatever, and it's like pulling teeth just to get going anyway. But you go there, you don't make the sale, and then you think, if only I'd said this, or if only I'd done that, instead of just like screw it and going on the next door to knock on or whatever. The people with the separation between the head and lifeline, they make the best salesmen because they don't give a shit what anybody thinks. They're going to do whatever it is anyway.
Wow.
So then the people that have this, that do go out and do that kind of thing, it stretches them like crazy. It's not easy. To pick up the phone and make a cold call and talk to somebody you don't know, that's torture. Even if you're the nicest, have the best personality. Good news is you're frank and direct. You're what you see is what you get there. very strong-willed. You can tell just from looking at the thumb that it's a very strong thumb. And a long index finger, definitely, you know, you'll make your way in the world. The heart line might be a little bit short. So it means that you are reticent to verbalize your feelings. You know, you might have all the feelings in the world, but putting them out there, you might be very shy about that. You know, you can put yourself out there in other ways, but when it comes to feelings, you know, you're kind of like a little cautious, and you know.
Does that mean for your kind of like personal, like intimate relationships, or all relationships?
You know, it's all relationships, but intimate, it particularly plays out in
Okay.
intimate. You know, when you have a long index finger, you want a partner, but you don't want to choose somebody that can't express their feelings, because it just keeps it safe. You want somebody that stretches you, that pulls you out, that helps you to
Wait, what's that related to? The long index finger? Or
long
the-
index finger needs a relationship, needs a partnership, wants a partnership. They marry early a lot of times, people with long index fingers.
Still single.
What about like the creases in between like the thumb and the palm? Does that mean anything?
Are you talking about here?
Yeah.
This is just, I mean, it's called Mars. It's the more aggressive Mars. When this is really puffy, some people have a puffy spot there. Good for sports and things, but it means that they tend to have learned to be aggressive. Even if they're shy, they have learned to push themselves out there. You've got a bit of that, so you know you worked on yourself to not be that shy, to be able to knock on the door and say, here I am, or whatever. It's not easy. It wasn't easy. So what do you think, Ray?
With all hands, is that, what was it, material?
Yeah, practical. Yeah, practical hands. Very nice practical hands. Strong, healthy, well balanced, good communication skills, ambitious, hardworking. Practical about feelings too, because you see how the heart line comes up between the index and the middle finger. So you tend to, you know, you're not the sentimental, romantic type. You're more practical about your feelings than that. Now you may have, the other hand may be different. The other hand may be sentimental and romantic. So you have that on the inside. You know, it's hard because I don't remember. I haven't looked that carefully. Nice imagination. You know, hardworking. I'm not sure what that means. But it's at the sort of early in the fate line. So there may have been something early on in childhood that motivated you to take a certain direction or choose a certain type of work. Nice large ball of thumb, so there's a great appreciation of all sorts of things. You know, love of art, music, and nature, and children, and all that kind of stuff. The farther the lifeline swings out into the hand, the larger the ball of thumb. Make a good landscape architect or something too, if that was something you were interested in.
At one point, it was actually when I was undergrad.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, you've got a talent, so it's really important that you have a garden, that you do especially when you have your own home, that you do those kinds of things and you express yourself through that. Pottery, different things like that, really good thing. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I noticed that some other hands, the lines weren't as defined. Like,
Yes.
I feel like mine are really like prominent.
Yes, that's a really good thing. And one of the reasons that, I mean, lines also have qualities like fire, air, and earth and water. And you have a very earthy hand because everything's deeply ingrained. It takes a lot to get to you. You're a very you know, what you see is what you get. You're not volatile. You know, you feel things deeply, but you don't get frazzled easily. You're sort of steady. You know, it's a very good thing. It's very stabilizing. Michael. So what do you think? Thinking type. Strong thinking type. Don't think you can see the hands that well here. Is any other one? Strong, healthy hands, strong middle finger. Kind of serious at times. And the index finger is a little short. It's not, it's not excessive or anything.
It's shorter on my right hand, but it's not on my left.
And you're right-handed.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more potential to build your self-esteem, to value yourself more, because people with index fingers that are a little short tend not to value themselves enough. They'll tend not to ask enough for themselves. They sometimes settle for too little. And especially when you have this connection, because it makes you self-conscious. It makes you take things personally. It's, as much, I would say you also had parents that were either overprotective or controlling in some way. Or at least they're, maybe somebody wasn't really available emotionally or physically during your formative period. But there was some issue early in childhood that made you sensitive to wanting, no matter how hard you tried, maybe Dad was critical. No matter how hard you tried, it wasn't good enough. You tried, you wanted the approval, but it just, it wasn't there no matter how hard you tried. So your job is to give it to yourself and to find other people that are wanting you to be your best self, to support you and nourish you. Stay away from people, if it was your father, like your dad, because you end up with, a negativity and feeling and keeping you down. I think there's issues, in the heart line there too. So you did get a dose of something challenging in childhood. This shows a lot of sensitivity. When you see a line above the heart line like this, the person's pretty vulnerable. They tend to not, I'm exposing you here. But, you're a sensitive person. You're naturally empathic. You'd make a good therapist. Because you know things, you feel things, you can tell when other people are, it's hard because you can be psychic garbage pail sometimes because people dump their shit on you just because it's so naturally easy for you to listen, be there. But because the heart line goes kind of straight across and even dips down, you're very analytical about your feelings. You compartmentalize, you rationalize, you analyze, you make decisions about feelings. It's very hard to verbalize feelings. Very hard to trust. And there are people, it looks like, who have earned your trust, but they're few and far between. Good strong thumb. It's interesting, the connection between the life and head is sort of procrastinates, but the long phalanx on the first phalanx on the thumb, this is will, the other is logic. It kind of makes you impulsive. So there's this sort of reticence to put yourself out there, and at the same time this sort of desire to be spontaneous and just say it like it is. So what do you think?
I felt like it's something in between the material type and the thinking type. But I wasn't sure.
What do other people think? I think the fingers are pretty long. So I don't see a lot of material there. I almost see the rectangular palms and long fingers being a feeling type here, dominant feeling type. So feeling types are great in helping professions and things like that. You know, if you know, you're oriented. There's that little phalange on the bottom of the pinky. Do you see what I mean there? How it's small down there. Money's never going to be a motivation. You know, of course, you need to be practical and responsible, but let's look more closely at the. And you've got that separation here. It's interesting. There are knots, you know, on the top and the bottom. These are sensitivity pads. So you're actually pretty sensitive to your environment. You know, you're probably smells, tastes, things like that. You know, you're more sensitive than the next person. You smell before they do, or you taste it before. You know, this is bad. You know, the person's eating it away, and you're like, this is spoiled, buddy. You know, or whatever. Anyway, nice hands. Combination of. A curving headline which gives creativity, adds creativity to practicality. You know, there is a freedom versus responsibility because you've got the strong middle finger. You know, it balances it out. This part really wants to rock and roll. The other part's like, you know, you can't rock and roll until you got your shit together or whatever.
Does it mean something when this line split?
When you're saying over here? This is the fate line here.
So it's just a short other.
Yeah, this is, you know, sort of a short headline. Does not mean a short life, but you do work on yourself when you see that. Recommend exercise, you know, paying attention to diet and things like that, just to strengthen what you've got. You know, you pay attention, especially as you age. You want to pay more attention to health issues. So you know you remain strong and healthy, and it does grow, just like anything. You know, when you work, it shows. Long first phalanges, real communication skills. I mean, you could be, you know, a speaker, a writer, you know, somebody that's a teacher, a leader. What is it you want to do when you grow up, when you graduate from here?
I don't know.
Well, you'll need to be a professional. You'll need to have a career because you have a long index finger. So it's, you know, you're meant to be out in the world. A lot of times people have this. I say go into business for yourself. Find a partner because you hate bureaucracy and critical authority figures. Can't stand being told what to do. You know, figure out what you want to do. There's plenty of people that graduate from design schools that go into the jewelry business or into this business or the design business or some other thing like that. You know, and if you don't, you get your chops somewhere else. You learn someone else's business, then you go into business for yourself. But you know, keep it in mind that you know you're an independent person. You're a person that may one day want to have her own thing. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
When you say that the features of your hand change, like how much of like what kind of length of time?
You know, a little tiny change could be a giant change in a life, and the feeling types change a lot. I used to print people every single time. Now sometimes I photograph, you know, do digital photographs or whatever. But
like from month to month, or
it can change from month to month. Some people don't change for years. I've had people that are, you know, that have been clients for 20 years and their hands still haven't changed. And they keep coming back with the same stuff, same issues, the same stuff. We talk about the same stuff all the time. It's the same thing. It's like, you know, history repeats itself.
fingers are closed.
Yeah, there's caution in that when you have all the fingers closed. What do you think, Ron?
Thinking.
Oh, that's a long palm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long palm.
Yeah.
Is it long?
And I think the fingers are pretty short compared to the palm. You know, intuitive type.
Yeah.
So a little inspiration goes a long way, yes?
Yeah.
On the whole, strong, healthy. Let's see what the other one looks like.
So this one, his fingers are more wide apart.
No, they're pretty close together. They're held pretty close. Yeah. Strong knots, strong need for order. Look how how tiny the bottom phalange is here. You better do what inspires you, you know, what is meaningful for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, otherwise, geez. And you know, plus the fact that you get bored and restless and impatient with anything that's too mundane. This is something that is hard to interpret, but it seems as though because this is so tied for a pretty good distance, it wasn't easy to get away from your parents, like to separate from them in a way. Like those people that have a long, it's like, you know, mom's like, why didn't you call this week? Why didn't I hear from you or whatever?
Yeah, especially with my father. That's my father.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father is more about like emotions than my mom.
Sometimes there's a role reversal.
Yeah.
Usually you get that through dialogue. So when you look, you see that, you know, there is a connection here. I mean, I had a huge island in my headline when I first started this in the middle, around to my mid-30s, and I was in my late 20s. And my brother happened to be a psychiatrist at the time, and I was reading all these didactic old palmistry books, you know, trying to figure out when they were talking about insanity and being institutionalized and everything. So I was a little worried, so I called, you know, my brother and, you know, asked him about it. And he kind of said, so, well, what's it look like afterwards? And I said, well, it looks fine, it's clear, and it's deep. He says, so don't worry about it, you'll find out when you get there what it's about, and then you'll know. You know, and he was right. I mean, I was confused, I was conflicted, I, you know, did struggle with direction, but I came out of it better than when I went into it. And, you know, so you just have to sometimes ride with the, you know, with the waves. So, but this is a major life change, and it's probably, early mid-30s. A change in thinking. It may be that there's more creativity, that you go way deeper into your creative self.
Yeah. Years ago.
You know, you try and look at multiple things to try and figure out what it is. And a lot of times you see that above the heart line, under the ring finger, you see these lines rising like this. There are a bunch of people that have that. That's kind of like satisfaction, fulfillment as you age. A lot of these people are late bloomers, especially the ones with this connection, because it's really hard to be yourself when you're young. You know, you kind of have to always like be getting everybody else's approval or, you know, busy being appreciated. But as you age, then, you know, you find your niche. You realize that your priorities are changing, you know, your values are changing, and you need to, you know, the real issue is having satisfaction and fulfillment in your life. And that's where you're headed.
Yeah.
That'll probably get deeper and clearer as you get there. Just do that for a minute there, because like mother, like daughter. Huh? Yeah, very, you know, beautiful little girl, strong, independent. Look how the fingers are spread, and, you know. got strong pinky. She has no problem saying what she, asserting herself. No problem. So now we have mom. So what do you think, Skylar?
Material.
You think that's practical? Do you
I
think
do.
there's a square palms?
I
and
don't
short
want it to be
fingers?
practical. But the fingers look longer there than they do here.
Well, sometimes the angle of the camera and things like that it can really distort things, and that's not an easy thing. That's why it's better to read people in person.
Yeah.
People send a picture and they're like foreshortened or something, and it looks like the
Yeah.
fingers in the palm is like this. But they are fairly long fingers.
Well, what is that type then?
I think it's pretty strong thinking, maybe combination intuitive thinking.
No, that makes sense.
Certainly makes for a good, publicist, promoter, promotional person, teacher. Long index finger, ambitious. The heart line is one of those long, graceful ones that go up. Like your husband better be bringing the flowers or the flower.
Yeah, we need to.
You're gonna have to, gotta set him straight if he's not. You want the goodies,
Yep.
or else there's the door. No, in all seriousness, it's, romantic types do need to be old-fashioned and do need to be romantic. It's part of the package. So talking about feelings and things like that's a very good thing. Nice clear headline, it dips down, it looks like it branches a little, so there's that little trouble making up your mind sometimes, of should I be practical or could I just trust my intuition, be creative? That can be a little challenging. There is a strong connection here. So when you're procrastinating, you need to make good sense to yourself, figure out why you're waiting for whatever it is. Sometimes it's just about letting go to learn to make space for something else, because if you're hanging on to something, it's not giving you the space to do something else. And people with this connection, they tend to, even when the handwriting's on the wall, it's not working, you can't fix it, they still keep trying. It's like, I'm not giving up because,
What do you recommend? Just breaking through?
I recommend, I do recommend sometimes, depending on the person, especially thinking type, that they make good sense to themselves, that they create a structure that forces them to move forward. That you make a list, you set it, you do deadlines, and if you have a long finger, then you partner with somebody, which means that you set goals together, makes it even more set in stone. You and your partner need to have partnership meetings every so often. Even if you're doing totally different things, you still need to talk about your own thing and how you can move forward and how you can help each other and what, what's wrong without any blame, what you can fix. Because fixed people tend to be creatures of habit. And habits aren't necessarily good. They can be,
That's true.
but you have to choose them. I didn't choose the order, the computer did, because it's alphabetical. What do you think, Seltman?
Thinking?
Yeah, I think there's strong thinking there. As a matter of fact,
My
in the
sleeve is kind of hiding a bit of my.
yes, look how long the fingers are in this picture.
Wow.
It's like whoa,
Yeah.
strong middle finger. Nice hands, straight fingers, good, healthy, strong, hardworking. I think I see this, and they lean towards the index finger. Great potential for success at anything you truly pour yourself into. And that's really the issue is that you're ambitious, and you need to be clear about what it is in terms of your vision of what it is you want to do with that. surround yourself with other people like yourself. You know, if the people who are looking for a ride, who aren't willing to do the work, you lose respect for them. There's just no future. Anybody that's not really willing to do the work is not somebody that you want to be connected to. You like people who are ambitious and, you know, in the world, doers. Long ring finger too, you know, good designer, long pinky, strong, good communicator, good writing abilities, natural, a lot of natural talent. What's the laugh about?
I'm being pushed into writing because our professor thinks I'm a wonderful writer.
I agree.
Wow.
I agree. You have a natural talent. You know, plus you're really not much of a procrastinator, so I would wrap my brain around doing it.
I'm a wonderful procrastinator.
That's only when you don't want to be doing it. If you want to do it, there's no stopping you.
Yeah.
There does look like there may be, you know, an issue in the heart line.
It's so weird seeing my hand there. It looks so familiar.
You know, when I used to teach at Cooper Union, I had, you know, sometimes 100 students in the auditorium, and I printed everybody's hands, and I put them up on the screen, and I'd say, whose hand is this? And people would be like this in the audience, and people didn't recognize their own hand. I mean, they were like, 10 hands would go up thinking that the hand that was on the screen, except sometimes the one that it was. But yeah, it's interesting to see your hand up there. But you're very practical about your feelings too. So, you know, romance is great, but the flowers aren't going to get results.
No romance.
Anyway, you know, when you see a bunch of lines here, like a fate line where there are a bunch of lines together, be careful of not spreading yourself too thin, of not getting distracted. You know, it could be an issue now. It looks like it's an issue later here. Let's move it up. You know, right now it's, you know, nose to the grindstone. But it is an issue because there are enough lines here that you have a lot of interests. You have a lot of talents. You're a multi-talented lady. You know, so the question is, what are you going to do with that? You need to kind of choose one and make it work instead of trying to do everything. You'd be a great jack of all trades, but where's the satisfaction, you know, in the success? And this little line that comes down is not extremely strong, but it shows an analytical side. It's sort of like, you know, when feelings get difficult, go into your head. You know, I'm gonna decide about this feeling. I don't want to have to deal with it. Any questions?
Yeah, when you were talking to Carla, you mentioned the health thing, and I kind of see that over there. Is that the same thing, or is that something different? Kind of lower, like there.
It's much less strong there. Usually when it comes from all the way from over here, and it's hard to tell here because the photograph's a little bit out of focus maybe, but it looks like it's just here.
Yeah.
There's not an issue. You know, there may be a potential for an issue, but I don't see an issue here. You know, there are peripheral things that can grow and deepen, and there's a possibility that could be a structural issue. So, if you,
Like a genetic structure,
it could be, or it could be that based on certain habits or patterns that you could develop a knee or a lower back problem or something like that. It may be nothing. I see plenty of stuff like that that's, you have knee and lower back. So then it's important to nourish those parts of yourself.
Mark, we have some students prepared to lead a discussion.
Okay, oh, we're actually at the end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do I plug and turn on the lights, or what do you
Yeah.
wanna do?
Yeah, we'll call them up. How about?
Good.
Did you have any final words you wanted to say before the discussion?
No, but I hope that you, realize that there's something to this.
Let's use these hands to